As many of you know, I already covered somewhat in detail Superman Son of Kal-El number 9 from last week where we talked about the lollipop incident. There's a little bit more to the story that I actually didn't cover because it wasn't pertinent to the video I was trying to make. But there was an article that came out on cbr.com that was so spectacular. The headline was so good. And when I read the article, I was like, I got to dig into this stuff. I don't know who Amir Sawan is from cbr.com. I'm sure he loves comic books. You know, he obviously is going out of his way to write stories about comics. And the headline is DC's new Superman's greatest weakness is fake news, which I find hilarious because a lot of what CBR, Newsarama, Screen Rant, a lot of those websites that cover the comic book industry are absolutely fake news. They do a lot of clickbait headlines, a lot of misinformation. And specifically this article, there's absolutely some fake news. There's a line in here that is so stupid, that is so easily rebutted by any actual Superman fan that he himself has actually become the fake news. So I think this is pretty hilarious. It also comes out in a time in our lives when we may have learned that perhaps not everything that has been termed fake news is actually fake news. I mean, we heard something about a laptop recently. I don't know. It turns out that story was correct. I think a lot of what we've learned about COVID within the last 12 months, but maybe 6 months, something like that. It turns out a lot of the fake news may have been correct in the first place. The fight against fake news, hey, I'm with it. I think misinformation is an absolute clear and present danger to our society, not just in America, but all over the world. I think a lot of people are being lied to and manipulated, and the media seem to be a willing accomplice. So I thought this was a funny article. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's too long. And then I am going to cover just a little bit about fridging. Somehow Tom Taylor threw that into Nightwing. I thought that was funny. I'm going to talk a little bit about fridging and why it might not be the enormous travesty Gail Simone and others in the comic industry would like to make it out to be. Now let's get into this article from CBR.com about Superman and fake news. Jon Kent has had to wrestle with a great many things since taking over for his father as Earth's new Superman. From protecting the world to trying to be active in correcting climate change, Jon has done an admirable job. One arena he seems to be vulnerable in, however, is maintaining his public image. In Superman Son of Kal-El number 9, Henry Bendix once again went after Jon's image, this time leaking video footage that made it look like Jon was responsible for the death of another metahuman. As many of you know, I am your friendly neighborhood cynical asshole. And you can actually take what Bendix is saying in there, and the information that he's putting out, he's not absolutely wrong. Because we do know that the metahuman, that was certainly a bad guy, but he was being used by Bendix and being controlled with him because he had an apparatus put into his head that turned out to be a bomb. But Jon Kent, in his infinite wisdom, decided not to use all of his tools available, including X-ray vision. When he decided to look at the guy's head, he saw the bomb there clearly, but by that time it was too late, and Henry Bendix had no choice but to do the deed and blow his head up. So if Jon Kent was a seasoned superhero like his father, he would have used his X-ray vision. He would have seen that there was something wrong with the guy's head. There was likely a bomb in there, and he wouldn't have put the person in that position. So from Bendix's point of view, and quite frankly from mine, Jon Kent kind of did kill him. If he had not gone in there, guns blazing, had done his due diligence as a superhero, and he would have seen that device, and he would have found a better way to tackle the problem and come up with a solution where the guy's head didn't blow up. I ain't saying that Bendix wasn't responsible, but I am saying that Jon Kent, at least in part, is an accomplice to the deed. He's at least partially responsible for that metahuman's head blowing up right in front of him. From the angle Bendix is spinning, it isn't hard to see things his way. As I just mentioned, Jon is a very public figure. More than any other hero active at the moment, even Wonder Woman, and especially more so than Batman. While that provides him a connection to the public, it also creates a different kind of vulnerability. Now, anyone with a level of social media skill can try and run a smear campaign against Jon and his father, digging up whatever dirt they could find in their profession and personal lives. Jon himself is still barely just of legal age. He doesn't have the savvy or training to deal with someone attacking his credibility this way, especially when that someone is the president of a foreign country. My goodness, have we forgotten who his parents are? His dad is a fantastic journalist. His mom is the greatest journalist in all the world. If anybody can combat fake news in the DC Comics universe, it should be Jon Kent. Look at his parents. Look at the connections he has. He literally knows Batman. Apparently, he's been lifelong friends with Nightwing that we didn't know about. Are you telling me that Jon Kent doesn't have the connections to get this thing removed? Batman gets stuff taken out of the universe all the time. I do not feel like this is an event that cannot be negated with a good PR campaign and Batman in your pocket. Hell, he needs to show up on TV with a lollipop in his mouth and talking about how his best friend is Dick Grayson, the guy that's giving away billions of dollars. Get out of here with that crap. Jon can't clear his name. His mom's fucking Lois Lane. That is a stupid statement, sir. But this last one, this has got the line that if you're a Superman fan, you're going to know that Amar Sawan is not, by what he says. This dude is so fake news and he doesn't even know it. This does not mean that he is out of the race. Jon is still Superman. He's done so much good in the short time since taking on the title, arguably even more than his father has. Jon isn't merely rescuing people or putting out fires. He's actively attempting to steer the world on a better course, helping to spread truth rather than the misinformation that can be found in so many news sources today, or trying to bring awareness to climate change by participating in their rallies. Plus, only someone who doesn't understand what Superman represents would believe that anyone raised by the original Man of Steel would commit murder. This motherfucker, talking about fake news, just said that Jon Kent, in such a short amount of time, has arguably done more for the world, the DC universe, than Clark Kent. Tell me that's not fake news. That is one of the dumbest comments that you're ever going to see in any of these articles. Yeah, Jon Kent, my ass, has done anything to even warrant the title of Superman other than being Clark Kent's son. Superman literally fought to the death with Doomsday. Superman has saved the DC universe, multiverse, now the Omniverse, so many times it's not even funny. This dude is in this article lamenting the fake news in the real world, not realizing that a lot of that fake news that you've been bitching about turned out to be true while he's spreading fake news on his own. There's nobody in their right fucking mind that actually likes Superman. I'm going to say not even Tom Taylor himself, not even the editor of that book, nobody at DC Comics would actually take a statement like that and be like, yeah, you might be right. Maybe Jon Kent is a better Superman. Okay, probably Tom Taylor because he's a dumbass. But just you can't say stuff like that and consider yourself a serious comic book news journalist, which I believe Amar Sawad believes that he is, because that is a fucking stupid statement. And he's completely spreading the stuff that he's supposedly fighting with the story. It's layers upon layers of stupidity going on in this article. Now, there was another article, and I guess there's some pictures of Barbara Gordon in the latest Nightwing issue that got people talking, including Gail Simone. I guess I'll cover it here because Tom Taylor's a twat, and I'll give him a little bit of extra coverage here. This isn't from CBR. I think this one is actually from Screen Rant, but it doesn't matter. It pretty much covers what's going on. And what they're talking about is fridging women in refrigerators. If you don't know what that is, Gail Simone coined the term as a way to critique a pattern of misuse when it came to women in comics. It was a direct response to Green Lantern number 54, in which Kyle Rayner discovers the corpse of his love interest stuffed inside a refrigerator by the villain Major Force. Simone and the women with whom she discussed this with online realized that throughout fiction, female characters would be killed, kidnapped, or otherwise incapacitated purely to incite a reaction from the male protagonist, furthering his development at the sacrifice of their own. Yes, this is not a comic book trope. This is not a movie trope. This is not a poetry trope. This is a storytelling trope where you take something that the protagonist, male or female, or it could be an alien or whatever the hero is, you take something that they hold dearly and you take it away from them. You can kidnap it. You could kill it. You could throw it at the bottom of a well or whatever. In fact, I just watched a show. It's on Netflix. And I would sort of, you know what? I will recommend the first 4 seasons of it. This 5th season I've gotten into is actually falling apart. It's called The Last Kingdom. And in the latest episode that I've watched in season 5, the protagonist, his name is Uhtred, and the way that the bad person gets at him, who happens to be a woman, is they cut his son's appendage off. You know what I mean by appendage, right? Like his dong. Because without that, his son would no longer be able to continue the lineage of Uhtred and his family. I'm not going to say that that is a wonderful thing to happen in this story. I certainly didn't want to see it. I know that it's in books and it's obviously in the show. But it certainly gave the protagonist motivation to go out there and find the bad person. They've taken something he held dear. They took his son and they took his dong off to try to wipe out his line. So it doesn't only happen to females, it happens to protagonists. In this case, what I'm talking about, it's a male protagonist. They took something away by chopping his son's dick off. Yes, in stories, sometimes you kill the hero's love interest, his wife, his girlfriend. You could also kill the hero's child. And that gives the hero motivation and it galvanizes them and it tests them mentally, physically, spiritually. Can they overcome this? This is a writing trope that has literally been used for thousands upon thousands and thousands of years since the beginning of storytelling. This is one of the stupidest controversies in the history of comic books. And the worst part about it is we got Gail Simone as a fucking comic book writer out of it. Gail Simone has done more bad than good in comic books. And the fridging controversy is absolutely stupid. But of course, Tom Taylor, being the twat that he is, decided he was going to use it in a very meta way in the latest issue of Nightwing. I believe it's number 90, which sees Barbara Gordon cornered by two men who move her into a refrigerated van at gunpoint, but she is still able to make remote contact with Nightwing and Flash because it's a team-up book. And while she could easily break out of the truck, she's reluctant to make her escape in broad daylight in plain clothes. Exasperated, she tells Dick, "They fridged me to get to you." That one really gets the old heart pumping, right? Oh, wow, they put me in a refrigerated bed. Isn't that funny? Can you hear the winks going on in the comic book from Tom Taylor? Do you remember Gail Simone and Green Lantern 54? But what can you say? This is DC Comics. It's Tom Taylor. He's apparently, I don't know, decided he can't write good comic books anymore. His Superman Son of Kal-El is an absolute mess. It's unreadable. His Nightwing, which started out with promise, has not finished a fucking story arc yet. And we're like, I don't know, are we a year into it? I think we're over a year into it at this point. There is no hope for Nightwing. And I'll be honest, I haven't been reading a whole lot of new comic books lately. I've been reading the stuff that I have to. I've been reading some of the stuff that I really want to. But I have been reading so many bad comic books lately. I've been taking the week off. But I thought I would check it on this one because it was so stupid. That headline was so bad. And then it was like the meta levels of you're spreading fake news, but you're bitching about fake news and all that kind of stuff. Is like, you can't make this stuff up. And fridging, like, who gives a fuck? They've been fridging characters since they began telling stories. This is not a comic book thing. This is just storytelling 101. And you would think a writer of such esteem of Gail Simone would know that. And Tom Taylor. If you want to hear about some writing tropes that are actually destroying comic books, I had this conversation with my good friend Drew from Comics Elite not that long ago. We talk about 4 writing tropes that are absolutely destroying the comic book industry. Definitely check this one out and see the stuff that should be pissing you off. And fridging ain't making the list.